Hi, Heather. How
Hi,
you doing?
Anthony. How are you? Oh, we have someone new in the waiting room. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. It's cold snap coming through my way, but otherwise I'm okay.
Cold snap. Oh, I'm sorry. Hi, Faith.
Hi, can you hear me?
We
Yes.
hear you. We don't see you, but
Yeah, sorry, I've got a baby trying to
Well,
eat
that's
right
all
now.
right.
So
That's all right. I did tell you that you could either be heard or seen or both.
okay.
You can be comfortable here.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
I'm just glad you came.
Yeah, I've been trying to make it. It's just I am all over the place with two kids and one with special needs, and then trying to teach this year. I have been very forgetful.
Yeah, you know what? I was a child with special needs myself, so I get how hard it is for parents of special needs to actually deal with that, the craziness that is associated. I get it.
I'm
My
gonna be
mother,
honest. He's probably the easiest thing I do all day. So
my mother went through hell and back and everything else trying to raise me and my little brother. She deserves a freaking award.
oh yeah. I actually think that the toddler is probably more handful than my big boy. I've got him under control now, and we know how to do each other, I think. And the baby's the wild child, gets into everything. And yeah, you think it's funny.
They sound adorable. Anyway, this is Anthony Perez. Is it Perez or Perez?
Hi, Anthony.
sorry, I'm just trying to check something on American Netflix.
Is your I guess your computer's working now, eh?
Yeah.
Thank the Lord.
Pause, stop. Sorry, modern technology has a mind of its own sometimes.
Yes. Anyway, so Emissary is tonight, folks.
Yeah, one of my favorites.
Yes, and the topic tonight, which I picked to go with it, is learning to live with change, because we go back to 2366, and we find ourselves at Wolf 359 in the very perilous battle of the Borg versus Starfleet. I'm just setting the stage. It's part of my work as an entertainer on paper and everywhere else for the most of my life. It's good to set the stage. And what are your thoughts on Emissary? I'm assuming y'all have seen it before.
Oh yes, many. Well, that's what Thomas thinks of it.
I love it.
I think it is, especially as an adult, it's one of my favorite ones, and one that I go back to, especially when I'm feeling a certain kind of way about my point in life right now, and the struggles that we go through with Kyle. I think that idea of you exist here in your grief has stuck with me a lot, and I find a lot of truth in that in my own experience. And then it's about embracing the parts of existing here that are helpful, because it is letting go of memories is also letting go of the positive part of those memories, but existing there for too long is a detriment to your present and your future. So
wait a minute, did you read my paper that I just wrote?
No, but it must have been good.
You should. That's exactly what my recent paper that I wrote for Star Trek Quarterly says.
Yeah, I remember the article.
That's exactly what it says, doesn't it, Anthony?
Yes.
For you.
And it's always interesting how they look at it. Back then, I remember how Sisko, like, why do you keep bringing me here? And they're like, the prophets, if you will, they're like, you live here.
Yeah, you're bringing.
If I lived there, I'll gladly move out. I guess you could say they were trying to get him to move out from that time period. and let it go on with the rest of his life.
Mhm.
And 6 more seasons of that show.
Yeah, you cannot be lost in your grief as much as you want to be lost in your grief and in your shadows. If you get lost in your grief, then you forget to live. You forget reality. You forget that outside of your grief, there's a life waiting to be seized. There's a life waiting to be lived. And if you just live in your grief, you forget reality.
Mhm.
Grief is heavy, grief is hard, but you have to learn to live with grief. You have to learn to live with the changes that come with grief, that come with loss. And sometimes you have to say to hell with everything else. I have to learn to accept what is.
But I would also argue that sometimes it's okay to like I don't know if you guys are a member of some of the podcasts, but Aron Eisenberg's birthday just passed this past
Oh
week.
gosh.
And it was so funny to me that my Paramount Plus account chose that this week of all times to stick every single night. It played from AR 588 until Paper Moon. And I didn't argue with it. I was like, I'm just going to exist here for a few minutes and, spend some time with an old friend. And, I'll come back, go back to my playthrough later. And after his birthday passed, it played on and the rest of season 7 was fine. It was really funny how that worked, but.
Well, I could put Aron Eisenberg in the list of actors I didn't get to meet before passing.
Oh, neither did I. I was at the conventions where he was, but I was working those for creation and I was just too busy.
I was blessed to get to meet him twice. Once at a convention that I kind of embarrassed myself a little bit, but in a good natured way. I mentioned to him in the autograph line that I had a crush on Nog because of his great character arc, and the next day, because Chase Masterson was sitting next to him and I guess overheard, and the next day at a panel somebody asked a question about the dance that he does at the party for Jadzia before the wedding. And so he was going to demonstrate it, and Chase called me up on stage and had me do it with him. So my dad has pictures somewhere of me dancing on stage with Chase and Max and Aaron. So, and then I met him again. He was like by himself. I think when Nemesis came out, it must have been at our local mall. I don't know why he was there of all places and by himself, but he was sitting by himself outside of the concession stand when we walked up. And so I walked up and said hello and talked to him for 5 or 10 minutes. And then we went into the movie, but that's pretty cool.
It's amazing.
Yeah. Well, I know that Miss Nog, but the funny thing is, I did get to meet both of DS9's favorite duo, Odo and Quark.
That's who came to mind, but I was going to ask who, because they're all my favorites.
There's tons of favorite duos, so I had to think for a minute.
Yeah, that was going to be my guess, though.
Yeah, I didn't get to meet Cole Meany or Alexander Siddig.
No, I've never
It would be
met.
nice to meet them, maybe. But I did get Odo. I got Renee before he passed. I got to meet Armin. The funny thing, this will be a quick story. I saw him at a convention the other year. I went up to Armin.
Mm-hmm.
I start rattling off the rules of acquisition. Hold on a second. What do I have here?
Of course you do. I love it.
Have the rules of acquisition. So he signs the picture. It's like this. To Anthony, Armin, Shimmerman, follow the rules and you will never go wrong.
Oh, Armin, I've not met him in person, but I took a couple of his virtual Shakespeare, like 3 of his virtual Shakespeare courses over Zoom that he was offering through Antaeus Theater.
Yeah. You'll have to let me know next time you see one if he does any more. Because I like crushed because I did my grad work through the USC where he teaches, but not on campus. And I don't think he's offering his courses online.
Oh, this
So,
was not through USC. This is through Antaeus. Him and his wife are involved with Antaeus Theater as well as USC. So, and I was very fortunate to be able to even do it. I lost my job because of COVID. So I was looking for things to do and I just came across it. And then I was in actually a Shakespeare play that filmed over Zoom in December. And so I got to send that to him and his wife over Twitter and they were delighted.
that's awesome.
And I had never performed Shakespeare in my life. So it was even more fun.
That's difficult. Yeah.
I've read Shakespeare, and believe me, it's not that good in the original Klingon.
So then you must know about King John then, Anthony, if you've read Shakespeare.
Well, I'm more of a Merchant of Venice guy myself.
Oh. Yeah, I played Shadowon and Louis the Dauphin, King John. So anyway, so yeah, Emissary's got a bunch of interesting things in it. Actually, when we first meet Nog, he's stealing.
Mm.
What a sad existence for someone so great to first be stealing.
Well, that was his life. That was all he knew. And then if you think about the situation, I mean, during the occupation, the poverty that most people probably lived under,
Yeah.
It makes sense.
And Dukat, according to what I've read on Memory Alpha, and I already know what some people think of Memory Alpha, so we don't need to go there. But Dukat was one of the more merciful Cardassians.
Well, he thinks he was anyway.
Well, he thinks he was, but Cardassians are the worst little gaslight. A lot of Cardassian rulers are the worst little gaslighters. They think they're the great and merciful saviors, and everybody else is wrong. I don't know. What do you think?
I have always kind of thought that Dukat is the hero of his own story.
Oh, that's a good way of thinking.
But all of his motivations run to what will serve him and his people best. And so if we were to switch to a Cardassian story, I think he would have been a tragic hero in a lot of ways. Maybe not perfectly so, because he did lose it at the end and did some truly awful things that were a little more on the unredeemable side. However, because his needs and his wants ran counter to our heroes, he is always the villain in our story.
That's true. Do you think Dukat was involved in that final raid that left Deep Space Nine such a mess that we see in the pilot?
That's kind of how they do it. Don't leave the enemy anything they could use. See, you watch throughout the season how they had to improvise. Yeah, especially like Rom having to steal like kitchen tools just to fix the holosuite.
Mm-hmm.
I love that.
I mean, even like, naval tradition, scuttle the ship, don't let them get anything. So I imagine that was the mentality is, we can't, short of blowing up the station, let's take everything of value, ruin the rest. At least if they're going to get it, they're going to have to work for it.
Mm-hmm. So what did you think of the whole Enterprise, Next Generation and Deep Space Nine crossover parts?
Well, let somebody else take that one while I think about it a second, because
Well, I remember in Next Generation, I think it was the season 6 episode, Quark has a cameo because Riker is trying to look for Picard, or I don't remember, but they did asking Quark for information. And I know Riker doing his best, oh my God, can't remember the stupid thing, Captain Morgan impression.
So we're
And
talking about Birthright, correct?
I think so, yeah.
Okay. I remember enjoying the Worf parts of that episode, especially when I think he and Geordi are eating eggs or something on the promenade and talking about how terrible they are and Worf loves them. So there's some comedy.
Yeah, and what about the one where Bashir had to team up with Data on Next Generation?
Yeah. It's weird. I only vaguely remember that until I went back and watched very recently. Thomas, stop. Like I didn't remember Bashir at all from my original watch through of that, but I do think I did enjoy at the time seeing the Next Generation characters that we knew on Deep Space Nine. However, I didn't like, and I still kind of, I understand the storytelling behind why Sisko reacts to Picard the way he does, but I feel like Picard doesn't act to me the way Picard should act as the captain.
So, what should he have done?
See, I don't really know. And I know that they're trying to show that he's really hurting. But I also feel like Picard had such an intuitive, like he was very good at reading people. And I felt like he should have been better in that moment at seeing, oh, you're, obviously you're hurting. But it was all just business, shut it down. Well, if you're going to leave Starfleet then. Have you
ever read the autobiography of Jean-Luc Picard?
No.
He was never very good at dealing with emotions of people and difficult people and difficult situations. And this has always been the way it was, especially with his family. He was never good at dealing with the emotional side of people and relationships. And this is probably why he was never able to really have any. And this is my observation. Like any relationships that actually lasted. I mean, he had little emotional connections with people for short times, but did you ever actually see relationships
What,
that
Picard?
lasted?
Well, aside from
he
one or
has
two episodes
deep
with
friendships.
Vash.
But anything deeper than a friendship, I don't think we've ever seen it.
You make a good point.
Yeah. Kind of, except they hint at it, maybe in some other universes, like All Good Things. But remember, he was dating Crusher at the last episode of Next Generation.
They were divorced. If I remember correctly, they were divorced.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
And All Good Things, they had been married, but they were divorced. Yeah.
But if somebody can't handle emotional sides of relationships and situations, they're not going to be able to maintain anything more than a friendship for a short time. If you can't handle difficult situations, and this has been my observation, I'm not a psychologist, but if you can't handle emotional things or emotional people or difficult situations, you can't face difficult things head on, and you have to run and be forced to handle things by other people, then you are not going to.
But I would argue that, as a captain, he definitely is facing difficult things, maybe differently than in a personal relationship, but I don't know. I can kind of see both sides of that one.
Yeah, I know, but it's like Sisko was also, he should have realized that he was going into a captain's office to discuss an assignment. He should have left his little, this is Jean-Luc.
No, but wait, losing a spouse damage is big damage.
Yeah.
I kind of with him on that one. I definitely feel like it was understandable the way he acted, even though it wasn't right. Clearly it was not the way to handle that, but
where was the counseling? Did Sisko ever undergo any counseling for this?
What, before Esri?
Yeah, no, I mean, after, like, did he undergo any like counseling before he took command of Deep Space Nine?
Now
I
that's
think the only
interesting.
counseling he had was from Lisa in that one episode.
Like, isn't there like protocol for that? Like when you have some sort of tragedy, aren't people supposed to
There
undergo
probably
some-
should be. In the future, there really should be. But even if we want to get into the medical side of things and the development, I mean, obviously there's a reason why storytelling can't advance past what we already have in certain ways. But like the therapy that they do for Molly when they pull her out of that time portal thing, you know, the therapy that they do in that for her is the same or not even as good as what we would do today, because of course it was 20 years ago. But it's interesting to think about how, you know, the therapy that we see on screen is a reflection of the times as well.
If I recall, they wanted to ultimately institutionalize Molly.
Right. And that's what I'm saying, that the therapy of the time.
So it seems like medical and psychological care has gotten worse as everything else has evolved.
Right.
especially
Well,
with
and
those
in
problems.
the 80s and early 90s, that's probably what would have happened to a child
Yeah.
like that. Nowadays, we don't do that anymore. I mean, I have family members that work in the industry and we don't do that anymore.
Well,
We try our best to rehabilitate in the home and give the family the supports that they need versus pulling them out and putting them in an institution.
well, Faith, let me tell you, I can tell you that's exactly how they handled it in the 80s and 90s because my family doctor, according to my mother, told my mother that I should be placed in a group home at 3 years old
Right.
because I was different.
My mom was a nurse in a facility. Yeah. My child would be there now if that was still what happened, if we didn't have the resources and things to take care of him at home. So yeah, I'm very aware. I have been around it since I was a child, and I'm very glad to see that they're phasing it out. It was hard on our family because it meant a reduction in work and things like that, but
Mhm.
at the same time, like, even as a child, you kind of look around and go, well, why are these people here? Why aren't their families here? Where is his mom and dad? When I'm visiting my mom at the office. So
I think we have griefers hiding in the waiting room. I'm not sure. Yeah, anyway. Anyway, yeah, you make a good point, but it's not easy for typicals to live among that which they don't understand. And I mean, I give Starfleet, for as many resources as it has available, they really had a lot of failures in it too. Like, I'm thinking primarily of the Bashirs, because you had to be pretty desperate. Amsha and Richard had to be pretty desperate in order to do what they did with Julian. They literally
absolutely. And Lord
they
knows
were so
I've said it
scared.
before, I would do it if that was an option today for my son to fix any problem that he has. I would do it
They were
in a
so,
heartbeat, and I wouldn't worry about the consequences if it made his life better.
they
But
were so scared of whatever would have happened to Julian in his future that they literally said, screw it, we're gonna go off planet, screw the consequences.
yeah, but at the same time, the next generation makes out like they've solved all these problems when clearly that's not the case. Where are these children actually? Like, that's the dark secret. If they make a character like Bashir, that's the dark secret, right? Where are these characters actually? Obviously they're in a facility because we see the mutants, as they call themselves.
Like, the augments were institutionalized. Like, the differences were hidden away, and we're definitely going to be discussing this during Diversity Month next month, and that's what February will be, by the way. You should definitely tune in for that because, you know, I make topics for all the months.
Oh.
Yeah, Captain's prerogative, Anthony. By the way, if you have episodes you want to see, suggest them and I'll squeeze them in.
All righty.
I put Melora in as the disability, does not mean inability episode, but if you have a better one, let me know. Anyway, yeah, you make a good point about the Federation's not perfect and it's definitely fearsome. They focus on perfection, and as much as they say that IDIC includes me, I don't think it does. And I've written essays on this about how much.
Oh, but how much is not seen on screen because I mean, obviously, because it wasn't in vogue at the time, you know, now it's becoming more commonplace and more requested, I guess I would say, to that we see that diversity, but
yes, but
how
we're
much
still
of it
getting
is
so little of it.
right. Well, but even in Star Trek, how much should we be seeing? Because in the future, the ideal should be that we have learned to fix any birth defects before the child even is born, something that could be fixed in utero. And that's, you could lean on on the episode where B'Elanna finds out she's pregnant for a conversation on that. But you know, fixing things like that, or identifying and providing early therapies for speech delay or, you know, other physical delays. How much of that should even be present in the future if everything goes the way we hope it goes and science develops? But then also,
but not everything can be caught.
Well, that, but also how much do we then, like, for example, autism, because many people are on the spectrum and live completely healthy, happy lives with,
that's very true,
you know, with the right people around them. Let's put it that way.
Mm-hmm.
And so would you fix something like that? Where do we draw the line at what deserves to be fixed?
I don't think that, you know, having been on the spectrum, I was only diagnosed in my 20s and I lived less than an easy life because my father, that I know as my father, refused to acknowledge me as his child because I was different. And
so what's your opinion?
I don't think I'd fix it. I've come to accept that it's a part of me and I'm working to embrace it, and I've done beautiful things despite having it.
And then, so I think there's two levels in that. For me, is for yourself, once you've been through all that you've been through to be an adult, would you fix it for yourself? But then the next level is, if you had a child that was diagnosed, would you fix it for your child to make their life easier? And I find for myself, I don't know that I would fix it because I've lived with it and it's who I am. But for my child, I want to take away every bump in the road so that they can live an easy, healthy, successful life. And I find that there's a strangeness in that if it made me who I am, why would I take that away from my child too? Right?
Okay, I'll answer this because I'm assuming I'm supposed to.
I mean, it's an open question. You don't have to if I'm making you uncomfortable. I'm sorry.
No, but it's a deep answer because I don't think I'd cure myself. I actually wouldn't cure myself because it's an interesting thing living with a neurodivergence. You see the world differently and you see people differently, but that doesn't mean it's bad or wrong.
Right.
I actually like being the oddball. It comes with a lot of social isolation and persecution, but that doesn't mean I'd erase who I am. Secondly, the having children thing's a little bit difficult because I actually have a condition called endometriosis, and my doctor recently told me that going off my medications to try and have a child
Mm,
would not be so smart because it would make me very, very sick. And it took me about 4 or 5 years since I was diagnosed to actually get to a point where I'm medically stable. So that would be very difficult. But if I were to ever have a child, I'd be very happy with the child that I got.
mm.
So
So for you, in both cases, your answer would be no, I would not.
no. And it's
Mhm.
not everybody's option, but it's the
Right.
simplest option. And I know that makes me sound very strange.
No,
Yeah, that
no,
sounds strange to
absolutely. And
me.
especially, I think coming from your own background, because, you know, you and I have talked and I know some of your story. I think that is a completely valid point of view.
Yes, I've written a lot of my story for Star Trek pieces. So
Mhm.
yes. And, you know, this is learning to live with changes and definitely, you know, getting diagnosed and getting everything that I've gotten, that is definitely learning to live with changes and adjust to them and grow because of them and grow in spite of them and grow in spite of people expecting you not to grow.
Right.
And growing
And I'm
just
sure there
because it
is something.
pisses, you know what? And growing just because it pisses people off and you get pure glee in pissing people off with your growth, that is fun.
Preach. That is what I'm telling you, that there is like I said, something to be said as well for having those bumps in the road and having those challenges. And I wonder, like, I'm sure you've been exposed to, if not read, The Time Machine, and what H.G. Wells says will happen to
Oh.
humanity if we make things completely easy. We turn into the Eloi and everything is perfect and we're pink little soft things living in the sun and we don't do anything and we're dumb as doornails, basically.
I actually
And
haven't, but I would love to.
you
If you
should,
send
you
it to
should.
me,
It's very good.
if you send
It's very
me
good.
the title and the author, I'll look that up. But
Okay.
people have literally told me you can't do anything. They've told me, called me all sorts of names, and to prove them wrong and to beat odds despite so many rude comments and everything else, and calling me dangerous, unteachable, unwelcome. Well, proving them wrong is entertainment for me. Yeah, like the mental health system. I mean, where was it? Shouldn't have Sisko and Jake been treated to mental health counseling?
Well, I mean, there is a 3-year gap between Wolf 359 and the start of Deep Space Nine. And Jake looks, I mean, clearly he's still got some lasting damage, but he looks like he definitely has had some sort of support along the way to be as resilient as he is. So I would venture a guess that there has been something, whether Sisko fully embraced it or not as an adult. I'm sure that he got his son some support.
Yeah, but what about himself? Didn't Starfleet say, hey, you need to go to counseling, you need to talk to
You can
someone?
force somebody to go to counseling, but that does not mean they have to play the game and take anything from it and until they're ready for it.
That's true. And Sisko could pretend he was okay even when he was not okay. He's very good at that. But that's my observation. Somebody else might have a different opinion.
I mean, definitely he how many episodes did we get after that one with Garrick Thomas?
Well, Garrick should have been a counselor, honestly. He was very good at calling people out on their BS.
Maybe, but I don't know. Do you want that guy telling you how to live your best life?
Not necessarily the best life, but he was very good at telling people how to live and stop being fake.
While being the fakest of them all. I don't know. I mean, like, I watched the episode The Wire where he tells all those stories. I have seen it so many times and I still cannot tell. I cannot figure out for myself even a piece of what the truth actually was. I mean, obviously something happened that got him banned from, Cardassian society, but what was it exactly?
We did an episode on that already. We did a watch party on The Wire, and oh goodness, I still can't figure Garrick out. It's interesting. We associated the episode of The Wire with caregivers and caregiver stress. And I'm wondering if, I don't know, Garrick failed at being a typical Cardassian. And I actually wrote a piece on this. I don't know if you read it. Maybe he failed at being typical Cardassian, and maybe he failed at doing what he was expected to do, and they made up some excuse and decided to turf him, just like people who fail to live up to typical societal standards. That's what happens to them. Society makes an excuse and turfs them to exile.
Maybe. I also think it was completely possible that he actually was a spy the entire time, but I don't know.
Spies don't have that many divergencies.
I don't know. I've never met one. Or have I?
I don't know, but I think Garrick was very much a divergent. He wasn't a typical Cardassian. He didn't act like them. He didn't seem like them. He didn't behave like them. And that's okay. I don't know. I'm overthinking. I overthink a lot of these.
Okay.
What's the matter?
Me?
I think my brain's just on overload.
Yeah. Well, it might be too that Garrick is the only one that's actually lived among non-Cardassians for any and had to assimilate in any real way. Right. And he's also a chameleon because he's obviously lived on other worlds as, a gardener, and now on Deep Space Nine for a while.
Well, that's true, but I mean, he lived on Terek Nor for a while, he wasn't allowed. That didn't mean anything. He wasn't allowed to go to Cardassia after his time on Terek Nor. Obviously, he did something very bad, very divergent to Cardassian standards in order to be stuck on Deep Space Nine, even after the occupation ended.
Well, and I think it's interesting to think about, maybe this is just a plot hole that just happened by accident, but obviously he was on Terek Nor for a while before the change in regime. But for how long, considering that he and Dukat are enemies, clearly do not like each other. I'm just like, how long would he have had to be there? I don't know. Or was that just an escape when everything hit the fan with the occupation?
I don't know.
Right. We don't know exactly. And I'm sure somebody's written something in a book somewhere I haven't read, but
I don't know. Maybe we all need to watch the episode again to refresh our brain. And then continue the discussion after. I don't know if anybody else is coming tonight that actually. At least we have three of them.
Not that really wants to watch and have a conversation about it, obviously.
Well, at least we have a good three. That's something. Everybody's amped up for Trek Talks tomorrow. By the way, Trek Talks is tomorrow.
Oh, yeah.
John Billingsley is one of our Twitter members, so please go support if you can. All the information, well, some of the information is posted in Facebook and on Twitter and everything. And yes, John Billingsley is actually one of our Twitter followers because I asked him to.
Cool.
We both have our love of humanitarian work in common. And so, yes, what do you think? Are we ready to watch?
Sure. What's the format for watching? Are we playing it through the Zoom, or do I need to have it queued up on my own screen?
No, just on your own screen, if that's all right and convenient.
Yeah. That usually saves us any liability issues. So that's what I was asking.
Yeah, we don't have any money to deal with lawyers or anything. I'm related to I'm related to Rod Roddenberry himself, but I don't have any money or anything. Yes, I am. I looked it up through Ancestry.
That's cool.
Yeah. But anyway, yes, once it's over, when you're done, just put in the chat that you're done. We may also you can queue it up and we may have to wait a minute, but when we come back, we can talk about it some more. And
Thomas.
oh, it's fine. He's delightful.
I wish it would say mama instead of dad all the time.
Is your child trying to tell you something?
About what?
Okay, I think she's getting ready to watch it. So
Yeah. Does anybody have any questions or anything? Do you have access, Anthony?
I got it ready.
Okay, good. So I'll see you after. If anybody has any
Okay.
questions, please put them in the chat.
Okay,
All right.
catch you in about 1.5 hours.
Yeah.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.
Resistance is futile. You will disarm your weapons and escort us to sector 001. If you attempt to intervene, we will destroy you.
Right, all right. Roll on torpedo bays. Ready, base. Move us to position Alpha in the center.
Anthony, don't forget to mute your sound, your microphone.
Bye. Sorry, give me a sec.
All right. So what did everybody think of Emissary?
I don't know. I have to think about this for a second. It's multifaceted.
Multifaceted. Now that's an interesting word.
Yes,
To explain yourself.
I'm about to, Heather. I'm about to. Well, the main storyline is Sisko's like confronting his haunted past and with the help of the prophets to finally come to terms with, okay, this is what happened, right? Not much I can do at this point. Let me continue the rest of my corporeal existence.
Okay.
Yeah, and then that's the main facet. But the other one, we got the new guys, so to speak, the young people, Bashir, Jadzia. They're out here looking for adventure, but it's not what you think it is. It's kind of like the bravado you see in a high school kid, really.
Yep.
And the third one is basically, how the whole backstory with the Cardassians. And Kira being the Bajoran representative, and how they fit in general. Okay, she's
I was kind of thinking about how, like, are any of these characters coming in here without any baggage? And I don't think there's a single one. Dax is maybe the lightest, if you can argue that, because arguably she has 7 lifetimes of baggage, but
Yes.
I think every single one of them is coming in.
He's a Trill who was prepared for joining.
Mm-hmm.
So not much baggage.
I mean, definitely it seems like the lightest.
No, I think that'll be, I have to disagree, Faith. I think that'll be Bashir. Because he's coming in like
Ah,
carefree.
If you take this episode as a standalone, but definitely we know he's got a lot that he's hiding.
True.
We find
I mean,
out
when this
later.
came out, we didn't know that yet.
Right.
I
He
think
seems the youngest and the least burdened, but I would argue in looking at the bigger picture, that's not the case. He's maybe hiding it better than some other characters.
you know what? Even without the knowledge of his augmentation, you can already tell with his, as soon as he opens his mouth, you can tell he's neurodivergent just because of the way he stammers, and he shoots off right with the, oh, do you want to go out just to a hot girl without saying even hello?
Mm.
You can tell he's neurodivergent. You can tell. And it's not a bad thing, but you can tell.
Yeah. I mean, definitely he's got a lot going on. But I think it's interesting that they all start from that, they're already layered in the very first episode.
Yeah, and then when Nerys takes him to the infirmary, he starts going on about, oh, I could have had this and this and this and this, and then he basically insults her homeland.
Right.
That's like, really? Instead of saying how grateful you are for your first assignment, you go ahead and insult somebody's homeland who happens to be one of your commanding officers. Oh, nice going, Julian.
Well, but I think that's what he was trying to say, that he was excited to be there. He was happy to be there, but he just didn't have the life experience to take the full concept of where he was and what he was actually saying to her into perspective, I guess.
But wasn't his father at one point like a Federation diplomat? Shouldn't he have been able to
He
take that?
says that, but do we believe it? Because when we actually meet him, was that not part of the lie?
I have no idea. Like, honestly,
Well, I mean, and there are some little loopholes like that. Like early on, Sisko tells a story about his father, very clearly stating that his father is dead. And then we meet him seasons later. So
I'm sure everybody, you know what? Everybody lies.
well, I wouldn't call that necessarily a lie. I think it's a slip of, just continuity as far as the writing, one person writing one way and didn't realize that was said in another episode, but
Yeah.
or they wanted to add a character and they're like, no, I don't remember.
I'm sure there are YouTube videos about that, as a matter of fact.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, it was a very interesting setup. Everybody's coming to this broken station with their own interesting pasts, and the novella actually provides a little bit. Have you read the novel?
Which novel?
Emissary. It's a novel.
Oh, the adaptation of this show? No.
It's very interesting. I have it on my shelf.
I think I did read the adaptation of the last episode, but I didn't realize there was one for Emissary as well.
Yes, there's one also for Broken Bow and for Caretaker as well.
Yeah, I have the Caretaker one. I just remember the What You Leave Behind came out as a novel like 6 or 7 days before the episode aired, and I had it the minute it hit the shelves, and so I read through as fast as I could to try to beat the episode.
Yeah. But it's interesting, like they're coming together to rebuild this station and to help the Bajorans rebuild after the end of the occupation, but I don't see much of them actually helping the Bajorans. They just sit on this station, really. What exactly are they doing?
Administrating and keeping things stable. But yeah, I think it's more about the wormhole once that's discovered. Then
so who's looking after the Bajorans then after they've moved the station away from Bajor?
I mean, we assume that there's rebuilding efforts going on, that the Federation is delivering provisions and other supplies, medical things that, you know, go unseen, probably passing through the station, but not necessarily part of our day-to-day story.
And and yet, if my math is correct, don't the problems with the Maquis escalate after that?
Yeah. So that's one thing too. I always have wanted to sit down and map out like all of the DS9 pieces of the timeline. Like, when did Odo arrive? So I caught in this episode, 4 years he's been antagonizing Quark. So if Quark has always been there, the last 4 years Odo was there. It seems like the station is not really that old. Like, we know the occupation was 50 years, but I don't think the station has been there the whole time.
Yeah,
But like,
it was, because it used to be Terok Nor, and we know that Neresa's mother.
yes, but that only would have been maybe 20 years before. And they say in that episode that it was the new station.
Oh, that's true.
So yeah, there's little pieces sprinkled around, but then there's also like, if Zial was 19, like her mom must have been immediately after Kira's mom.
Oh, you know what? I don't know. I was only a child when Deep Space Nine was fresh. I'd have to ask my mom. She claims to have watched Deep Space Nine and swear
Oh boy.
too.
But yeah, some of those, like the background stuff that happened, especially before Emissary, I guess, gets a little bit fuzzy, and it makes it like Dukat's either really, really old or hasn't been there quite as long as I think we're led to believe in certain episodes.
So cats, like all Cardassians, they lie for their own purposes.
Yeah. And the fact, I make a toast to the writers not keeping the facts straight.
I should put together a timeline and see if somebody will present it to next time, like Robert Hewitt Wolf comes in, or Ira Stephen Bear or something. Be like, hey y'all, we have some questions.
Oh, hey, that would be great if somebody managed to get them to be aware of us. I've been running this show since like September, and I'm sure they're aware of this whole thing, but you know, would be nice, but they are busy.
Definitely.
So, I mean, until then, we keep going forward, and maybe someday they'll be aware of us.
Maybe.
And apparently I've got some, I guess, some deceased Star Trek stars in my line, and I've got a few Roddenberrys apparently in my line too, ancestral lines.
Cool.
Working on genealogy, and there's this actual site called Relative Finder where you can look up like famous people and stuff you're related to, and I found a few so far.
That's fun.
I found bones in my line, believe it or not.
Oh, really?
The original bones.
Another one I never got to meet, but then again, when did Star Trek Next Generation come out? I think I was 8.
Yeah, I think I wasn't very old.
Who didn't you get to meet?
Oh, which one, me or Faith?
You, because you started to say, and then you dropped off the face of the earth.
No, I'm right here, number 1.
I was teasing you.
Number 2, if you really want me to give you a whole rundown who I met from the original series.
Of course we do. That's why
William Shatner.
Oh.
Nichelle Nichols.
Yes.
I met Walter Koenig.
Oh, yes.
I met George Takei at last year's Comic-Con.
Did you meet his husband?
Brad wasn't there.
Oh, really? Brad goes with him everywhere, though. I thought that was a fact of life.
Well, it was just me on the autograph line.
Oh, Brad's his manager, though.
Yeah, the crazy thing was William Shatner's there at Comic-Con. Takei was delayed. So me, like 10 other people waiting on the line while Shatner is signing away. I'm like, oh, where's Takei? He's an hour late.
Oh, well.
He did show up, though. He did show up. Now I know he was a little behind because he did have a panel later on that day.
You know, at least there were conventions last year.
None around your way, I reckon.
No. That's all right.
Oh.
I met plenty when I was in Las Vegas. I volunteered and I worked my butt off and I spent a lot of money.
Yeah,
On the
good to do it,
convention or on the slot machine?
I don't gamble, not anymore.
Yeah, I ever seen the Twilight Zone? You know, in that episode where the guy gets chased around by the slot machine and it throws him out the window.
Oh my gosh. No,
I have not seen that one. That sounds terrifying.
I only did it a little bit in my 20s and I found it boring. No, I volunteered and I worked at the con, and that's how I was able to get some photos. They were freebies.
Yeah. So let me see. Shatner, Nichols, Koenig, Takei. That's the ones that are still alive. I met James Doohan.
Oh, lucky.
And Nurse Chapel.
Lucky.
So lucky.
Yeoman Rand before they passed away.
I really wish I could have met Majel Barrett. She's so amazing.
Oh, yes.
And I'll just to add to what we were looking at tonight, from DS9, I want to meet Avery Brooks. He says he's not doing conventions anymore.
Yeah. He apparently came to our local mall here. Like when I was in high school, there was rumors going around that he had been here. And I was like, dang, I wish I could have been out that day. How random.
Yeah. But I met from DS9, I did meet, like I said earlier, I met Odo, I met Quark, the late Renee. I met Armin, Terry Farrell. I don't count Worf because I already met him. I consider him next generation.
My mom's
and that's pretty much it. Haven't met anybody else from that show, sad to say.
That's amazing. My mom's favorite character is Worf, and she will not tell me the depth of her trekkiness. But she did demand of me that I get a picture with Michael Dorn. So I got a picture with Michael Dorn. And he was so amused by it when I was like, my mother demanded this of me.
He's like, well, I guess we have to then.
Yes. Yes, it'll be interesting. Like Emissary, it doesn't really show much of anything. I'm surprised that Worf didn't make a cameo. What do you suppose he was doing while all this was going on?
He was part of the TNG cast. And then it was after All Good Things, where they moved him to Deep Space Nine.
Well, but we know exactly what was happening during this period. He was off doing Birthright. So go watch that episode.
That's true. And I guess it was like The Way of the Warrior was like after Generation.
Yeah, that's for season 4, I think. Beginning of season 4.
Yeah, because the Generations, the Enterprise was destroyed and Worf was lamenting about it in The Way of the Warrior. If I recall correctly. Yeah, so.
Yeah, and crazy how they try to bounce him between DS9 and the TNG feature films.
Yeah.
We got a Defiant cameo in one of the films, so that's cool.
I believe that was First Contact.
First Contact.
I think so, yeah. No, Insurrection, I think. Isn't that the one? Maybe you're right. It's been a minute since I've seen the movies.
It was first contact because, you know, Picard took control of the fleet and the Borg created the wormhole and they traveled back to the past in it.
Yes.
And-
Remember, originally Picard, the producers wanted to blow up the Defiant, but Ira jumps in like, you're not blowing up my ship.
Thank
You
goodness
need
for
a
Ira.
ship.
And a note on first contact, that is on the list for April.
So that's why they changed the line to have Riker say, "Oh, she's adrift but salvageable."
Yes. And in honor of the first contact month, that is on the list for April. So-
April. Okay, I'm still figuring.
The schedule's on the pinned post in the group.
Yeah, I'm trying to get Paramount Plus because I don't know how Canadian Netflix works. Like I've been trying, they're doing here, south of your border. They've been trying to move all the Star Trek shows to Paramount Plus.
Mhm.
I'm lucky that they have DS9 on Netflix still.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Netflix would be on the chopping block in our house, except they have so much Korean stuff for my husband. So
Oh, well, that's
Yeah.
cool. And Netflix also has a lot of cool stuff. I'm actually using Netflix a lot because there's not much to do around here right now besides watch television. So
Without getting too detailed, may I ask which part of Alberta you live in?
the South,
Mm,
about 45 minutes from the border.
okay, I take it a rural area.
Mm, about. Anyway, yes. So Emissary. So I found a couple of interesting quotes that stood out.
Mhm.
So the unknown that defines our existence, what do we suppose that means?
It does define our existence because if we knew what everything was, there would be no point in, you know how it is that you have a book that you already read 10 times over, you already know how it's going to end, how it's going to begin.
Mhm.
You know what I mean, Faith?
Yes, I agree with that. That it's the unknown and that searching, like kind of like I said earlier, like if there was nothing to strive for, we would all just kind of atrophy.
Okay, so if the unknown seems that exciting, why are and I relate this back to our discussion about disabilities and stuff. If the unknown seems so exciting, then why are people so afraid of it that they pretend it doesn't exist and they want to shut it away from their lives?
They're selective about which unknown they want to know about.
That's exactly right. It's overwhelming all of the unknowns at one time.
Hmm.
So we select which ones are acceptable at any particular time and where you are in your life.
That's very thoughtful. It's very, very thoughtful. It's like, I suppose we deny ourselves the opportunity to grow if we're selective, though, am I right?
Probably.
Yeah.
And people can't give us that growth. We have to allow that growth for ourselves. And basically, that's what they were saying with Sisko. We cannot give you the growth. You deny yourself, right?
Mm-hmm.
I know you have to take charge and deal with it yourself. Remember, it's like that, like to quote the first Matrix movie, which is the only good Matrix movie in my
I've never
opinion.
seen it, but go
Agreed.
ahead.
I remember there's the part where Morpheus, that's Lawrence Fishburne's character,
Mm-hmm.
took Neo, which is Keanu Reeves. No, they would go to this door, like, so Neo, like, what's going on here? So Morpheus is like, I can only show you the door. Basically, he's trying to find certain information. So he says to Neo, I can only show you the door. You have to walk through it. Meaning it's up to you to discover what's going on, what you need to figure out. And we can't help you because Sisko had to walk through the door.
Yeah, he had to accept what was. He had to accept that It had happened. His wife had been killed. His ship had been ruined. His crewmates, the ones who had died. He was now on Deep Space Nine. He was not in his ship anymore.
Yeah, and he was still ticked off at Picard.
It's like Picard wasn't even Picard. Picard had been taken over by the Borg. He wasn't even himself when it happened.
Well, the logical part would understand that Picard was hijacked by the Borg, but the emotional component still is ticked off at at Picard for killing his wife. Like, I don't care if you were a toaster man or not. You took away something precious from me, and
I realized something that's probably obvious, but it never dawned on me that they're both suffering from PTSD for different reasons, but from the same event in the same exact time frame. And so, yeah, I don't know. I what I said earlier before we watched, I kind of take back a little bit. I feel kind of bad for both of them because they're possibly in the same position and they're grieving, even though they don't look like it.
Picard was robbed of his dignity, and he was forced to do unspeakable things when he was not in control of himself. Sisko was robbed of his wife, his ship, his crewmates, everything. And he was not in control of the situation. Both had similar things happen, and both really weren't given the opportunity to really meet each other before that moment in time, and they didn't get the opportunity to really deal with the situation for themselves or each other, and then they suddenly had to meet each other as equals, and they weren't ready to do it. Because suddenly they're both commanding officers, and they're like, oh my goodness, we don't know how to deal with this.
What the?
Oh, a light-hearted moment and a moment of seriousness. I love that. Blessed be the children. Oh, did you like that?
Laughing at me.
He's getting that slap happy ready for bed, I think.
Anyway, on point. I've got this diploma in communication arts, and I've been doing communication type things in different works for 17 years, so I can get very deep sometimes.
And in the pointless trivia component of tonight's screening,
Yes.
looking at the flashback of the battle, I can see that Sisko's ship was a Miranda class that did not have the torpedo launcher on top. And one of the other ships that got blown up was an Ambassador class starship. And here I am getting completely off topic.
I love that. Bring it on. Have I ever complained about Anthony? Really, we're going to pause here for a minute. Have I ever complained about you getting off topic? Really? Have I ever done that?
No.
Well, then, shh. Don't apologize. Because I find it hilarious that we all get off topic. I mean, last week I talked about Forrest Gump. So, fine.
Yeah, I think I was knocked out that week.
Yeah, you were. Anyway, so looking for solutions from within. I mean, that is the part of growth. And growth can hurt. Growth can cause pain. Growth can really hurt, but it's something we must do. Don't hurt yourself.
I'm fine, not hurting physically or metaphysically.
What? Okay. You're too smart for me sometimes.
Really?
Yes.
Too smart for you.
Yes, you're very smart. You're Mensa level. Go join Mensa. So looking for solutions from within acknowledges weaknesses. It acknowledges your need to grow. It acknowledges that you're not perfect and you will never be perfect, but that you're capable of being better.
Yes.
What do you think of that? You don't know? I'm an intense type of communicator, aren't I?
Mm. Well, you're the one that performs in the, oh my God. You see, you post on Facebook, you do Shakespeare stuff sometimes, reading online.
Oh yeah, I
Refresh
do
my
a lot
memory,
of different
please.
communications online, but I've been doing this for close to 20 years. Performing and communicating online for like since 2009.
Hmm.
So did we lose you, Faith?
I'm still here. Just Thomas was screaming and hollering and throwing stuff. So I'm muted so I didn't distract from everybody.
Oh, that's fine. I mean, what do you think of all that we've said?
I was distracted. I'm sorry.
And so what did we say, Anthony?
I lost track. You know, something about communicating with people and being at it for a very long period of time.
And I talked about how, you know, looking for solutions from within, like, involves acknowledging your need for change and growth and admitting that you need to change, and then also admitting that you're not perfect and never going to be perfect, but admitting that you can and should be wanting to do better.
Mhm.
Yes.
But that kind of goes back to what we said before about like some of these people needed therapy.
They all needed therapy. How is it that they didn't have it? Did they have a counselor like right away? I
On
don't.
DS9?
Yeah.
Not really until the last season with Esri Dax.
But I think it fell under the
Nice.
medical.
Yes.
Yeah.
They
But
mentioned
in terms of having a dedicated counselor, that won't happen until season 7 of Deep Space Nine.
no, they mentioned Telnori because Miles went and saw Telnori after Hard Time.
Mm-hmm. Was Telnori a counselor though, or was that a different medical doctor? Because I don't think that's ever made clear either.
It was a counselor because Julian specifically
He says talk to Telnori or talk to me, but he never says specifically that Dr. Telnori is a therapist versus any other kind of doctor. And being that this is basically the Wild West in space, it could go either way because anybody would have been doing whatever job. And realistically, if this was really the Wild West, you know who's actually the therapist is Quark.
Well, that's
right?
true. I mean, that's very true. And Quark sort of acted like a therapist.
Mm-hmm. Pour some drinks, talk to me.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I actually just looked it up. I hope nobody's insulted that I did that, but you know, facts are
No.
useful. Telnori was a counselor stationed on board Deep Space Nine, according to Memory Alpha.
Okay.
Okay. That's new.
I would like what the, I
What?
mean, I think that's an assumption. I don't think that's ever stated. It's an inference, I guess, based on
Right. It's
their-
not official canon.
I think everybody counseled each other.
sorry.
No, don't apologize. I hate apologies. Don't do that. Everybody's allowed to have their theories. Don't apologize because it's the assumption. Apologizing is saying that you're wrong and horrible. And I don't think anybody is wrong and horrible here. And
I think
like
that's,
thinking that they're wrong and horrible because this is a safe space where discussion is free and welcome.
okay.
Okay. All right. So I do have something to ask. So what does it mean to you to learn how to exist beyond a certain space? Like, you know, the little entities were telling Sisko where he existed because he chose to exist there. What does it mean to you to exist beyond a space and move beyond a space so you can grow?
I think you just answered your own question.
I may have answered it, but you guys haven't. What does it mean to you?
For me, I relate it back to, you know, my experiences with Kyle when he was born, and not living in those negative feelings and emotions, and not focusing on what happened to us, but what we have and all the positives of his life. And so, you know, to apply that to other situations, it's not dwelling on the negatives of your past, but learning what lesson you can from it, and trying to move forward. And of course, that's always, you know, sometimes easier said than done when there's actual PTSD involved, but you know, it's a work in progress.
Yeah. Well, I think there's a little bit of PTSD involved in everything, because every type of growth involves sacrificing a comfort zone, and it's really very hard to get used to living without it. So, and that's okay to have a little bit of PTSD, but as long as it doesn't dominate you, right?
In my case, I kind of feel like more like the prophets, in that I tend to focus on one specific part of my life. I kind of bounce back and forth. So in a sense, physically I'm linear, but like in regards to my faculties, I'm not so linear. I think you're gonna call me scatterbrained. I could think back to high school stuff and fast forward to what I did yesterday. And then, I don't know, stuff I did last week. Even while watching this episode, I'm thinking flashbacks to how this last year's Halloween was for me. So basically, I don't dwell in a particular place for long.
Like when something happens, you tend to fixate on it. It's very hard for you to move past it. Is that, I'm trying to understand it. Is that what you're trying to explain?
No.
Okay.
You feel like you're the opposite in this situation, this analogy, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, because I've managed to reconcile my past with my present.
Mm-hmm.
So like I said, I'm not doing like Captain Sisko, no dwelling on losing his wife. So basically, what's past is past, what's present is present, future is future, the way I see it.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I'm saying I feel like Mark the Prophet being non-corporeal. I don't like focus on a specific time. I know some guys maybe who keep on trying to relive. God, I've dealt with this, where I had to deal with people who seem to be stuck in their high school days because they could never move on with that part of their life.
Mm-hmm.
No, kind of like Al Bundy, keep on reliving that football game. Or some guy who you think, oh yeah, when I was in high school, I used to get all the girls, and now they don't want to talk to him anymore.
Mm-hmm.
But I think something like that, some people never move on from certain events for whatever reason. So in that regard, I understand it, but I don't exactly relate to it.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense.
That's interesting.
Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. And I'm very touched that you shared. Both of you, I'm very touched that you shared. So thank you for sharing.
You're welcome.
No problem.
So, milestones are healthy, and accepting change, even if you're not ready to accept it, accepting it in a healthy manner, that's good. That's a milestone. We should be proud of that. Now, what were your favorite parts of Emissary?
Sorry, which one of us?
Either one. I'm addressing both of you at the same time. Whoever's ready to speak can start.
Faith?
I really love the pond scene at the beginning. Like, I wish we could have seen more of that. I love that first moment when they come out of the holodeck and they see the station for the first time. That's always memorable. And I just love that sense of wonder that Jake brings to that scene. And I gotta admit, I always love seeing Dukat get his butt handed to him. So I kind of like when they come to towing him through the wormhole at the end. So yeah. How about you guys?
But talking about how people see things, it was kind of weird when Jadzia and Captain Sisko went through the wormhole. So Sisko sees a stormy environment, while Jadzia sees a Garden of Eden. They all both look at each other. What do you mean you don't see this? I see this, but I don't see that.
Perspective.
Yeah.
And I suppose it's where the heart is, right? Like Sisko's heart was not in seeing anything but negative and sorrow, right?
Oh, that reminds me. I wanted to ask what you guys thought of. So when the I guess the prophets take over and everything goes to white for the first time, but then it's shattered. And it's like he's falling into the broken pieces. Do you find any symbolism in that, or?
Yeah. If you focus on the negative for too long, you get overwhelmed and you crumble in on yourself and you can't take it anymore, because you can't do that. If you're constantly focusing on the negative, you'll get overwhelmed and you'll fall apart. And that'll be it, and you'll shut down and you'll need a rest and refocus if you're going to get anywhere at all.
We think it's significant that that's the only time really that it shatters like that, and then any other time in the whole series that we see, except for maybe at the very near the end when the orbs all go out, but I think any other time it's like solid white light.
Well, I suppose Sisko's focus was broken. He needed direction in order to stabilize himself. Yeah. My favorite part of the episode was the whole, there's change that happened. There was sudden change that happened. Nobody could predict death. Nobody could predict chaos. Nobody could predict the losses that came. But just because loss happened, just because death happened, it's not an excuse to stop living. Just because irreversible change happens, it's not an excuse to stop living. You've got to pick up what you can. You've got to assess the situation, and you've got to move on and make the best of what you've got. And if I'm getting too deep, please stop me. I can get very deep with Star Trek.
I think it's all there. I think you're pulling right from the page, so to speak. But I wonder too, like, what does it mean to move on when you've suffered that kind of loss? Because obviously he had gone and he had done another job for 3 years, and now he was accepting another assignment. he was living day to day with his son. So obviously his body's going through the motion, but you know, what part of it wasn't coming along.
He was alive, but he wasn't living.
Right.
He was functional, but he wasn't there. I mean, the novella, the Emissary novella talks about, it gives Jake's perspective how his father went through the motions, wasn't really there for him, wasn't emotionally available for him. Functioned, did his duty, but wasn't really there because he was so lost in his grief. You cannot be lost in your grief and expect to live a full life.
Mm-hmm.
And
That's interesting.
harsh, but it's true. You okay?
Oh, sorry. That's just my crew acting stupid sometimes.
Well,
Oh, and by that, FYI, me being the commanding officer of a Star Trek fan club.
it's okay. I don't really hang out with other clubs anymore except for this one. So it's just, I'll talk about it privately.
I know. Okay, I get it.
Anyway, yeah, it's about, you need a sense of resilience if you're going to pick yourself up from broken things and broken situations, but it is possible. It's not easy to develop.
Yes, nothing ever, all the good stuff never is easy.
I mean, I remember at a point where I was so broken and lost that I took a Zoom course through Australia that required me to be up once a week at 1:30 in the morning my time until 3:30 in the morning my time, just so I could participate in the course. I was very much jobless and alone and depressed and overwhelmed with a lot of negative things in my life, but I needed that course, so I made the sacrifice.
I'm sorry you went through that, but I'm glad you found something to fill the hurt with.
Well, it didn't help certain situations get any better, but it helped me personally. It helped me find strength from within and actually develop an appreciation for myself. And
Well, that sounds like a positive.
I did it.
And it seems working on yourself is always a positive, even, you know, however you choose to do that.
Yeah. And, you know, I ended up putting my feelings into some very beautiful writings that are available online. I'm more than happy to email them to you.
Okay.
Yeah. And, you know, Sisko did eventually come around. By the end of the episode, he had gotten to a place where he was ready to develop a sense of resilience. I'm not saying he developed it all right away, but he was ready to accept the need for it in his life. He was ready to accept that, hey, I need some help here. I need to let this pain go so I can look forward to this station, to the people who need me, and whatever else I'm meant to do here.
Yeah. And this kind of creeps up a little bit in near the end of the last episode.
Yes.
Almost a little bit like the first.
Yes. It does, doesn't it? We'll have to watch that sometime. I'll have to see where it fits and schedule. Yeah, so I mean, developing resilience takes time, but people can learn to live with change. It's not an easy process, but it's a possible process. Does anyone have anything else to add?
I don't think I do.
Because I don't want to keep you all night.
Yeah, it's already 23:05 my time.
Oh gosh.
Yeah.
Is everybody
Both
tired?
babies are asleep and that never happens, so I probably better join them soon.
Yeah, has everybody discussed what they wanted to discuss tonight?
I think I have. Thank you for
Yeah.
being on tonight.
Yes, related to
Okay.
this, yeah.
Yes, the next gathering is on the 22nd. It was originally on the 21st, but I decided to take a little staycation and within my province next Thursday and Fridays.
Fun.
I'm fully vaccinated with my booster, so I can do that.
Hmm.
Yeah, so we'll be watching the pilot episode of Picard and a Short Treks episode. Hopefully you'll be able to get the Paramount thing working.
By that time, yes.
Yeah, that's next Saturday, so you've got plenty of time. Yeah, the event details are in the page. I'm glad you could both make it tonight.
You're welcome.
And I'm grateful you came, Faith. I hope you enjoyed yourself.
I did. I really needed this tonight. So like I said, thank you for being on tonight.
You're welcome. I hope you come back and I hope you bring lots of others. All right.
right.
Have a lovely evening.
You too. Good night.
All right. All right, night.
Night. Thank you for coming to tonight's discussion. Live long and prosper